management, strategic management. Sir is a voracious reader and a TEDx speaker. Sir, we once again extend a very hearty welcome to you, and we request you to please take on the stage and start with your thoughts. Vikas sir, if you could hear us, or Ankur sir, if you could pass on the message to him.
Ma'am, within a minute he is going to start.
Okay. And once again, our heartfelt thanks to all the participants. Some of us may be having a holiday today, and still going by the numbers, we could see the participation. So heartfelt thanks to all of you.
Tarun, what is the problem? What is the problem? Why Vikas sir is not able to join? Vikas sir is not able to speak. Arora ji, you can unmute.
I have. Thank you. Ankur, did you speak to Professor Vikas?
Yes, sir. I have talked to him. He have restarted his system.
Okay.
Within a minute or two, he is coming. Because what is happening, our voice is going to him, but his voice, he cannot listen this. He can, whatever he is saying, we can listen, but whatever we are saying, is not able to. So that's why he restarted the system, sir.
Is he changing his device or what?
Yes, sir. I think he have restarted the system. So same device he is using. So he is asking for 1 or 2 minutes, sir.
We request participant to please wait for a few more minutes.
Hello, sir. Can you hear us now?
So you have to unmute yourself. Just unmute your mic, sir.
Yeah, just a minute.
We can hear you, sir, now.
Okay,
Properly.
just a second, just a second.
Tarun, unshare your screen. Yes.
Hold on, एक second. Okay. My God.
Hello. Sir, can you hear us now? Yes.
So you have to unmute yourself.
Just a second. Yeah, just a minute.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, just a second, just a second.
Tarun, unshare your screen. Yes. Yes.
So you have to unmute yourself.
Just a second. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
My apologies, for this technical glitch, and thanks to the Sharda University for inviting me, because we already consumed so much of time. So if you allow me, Parul ma'am, then I would like to start with the discussion. If you
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Our audience has shown great patience, so thanks to them.
thanks
And
to them.
sir, you can go ahead, please, without losing any time. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please. Sir.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Make it full, sir. F5.
Yeah, just a second. Okay, so this focus. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. We
Yes,
are
sir.
full
Yes, sir.
screen.
Yes, sir.
In the full screen?
Yes, sir. Full screen.
Thank you so much. Right. So thanks for this opportunity. This moving towards more continuous and comprehension evaluation is the topic which is given to me, and this discussion point is quite crucial because we have been working on education 5.0. Now we call it education 5.0, just like we have industry 5.0, we are also having education 5.0. And this education 5.0 is primarily talking about having the outcome based education. And in this outcome based education, there are three important parts. And why I'm saying outcome based education, why I'm starting from here, because assessment or evaluation is basically to test what is the level of attainment. Now, attainment means we must have some targets pre-decided, some targets set, and then we devise a system using that or using which we can find out the attainment of the preset outcomes. So there are three components of outcome based education. First is outcome based curriculum. Now, because Sharda University is having a accreditation, so I'm quite certain, quite sure that the university is already using outcome based education, and it's such a matter of pride, because out of 980 universities and 50,000 institutions, there are only about 15% institutions and universities which are having accreditation. So yours being one of those institutions shows that you have adopted the outcome-based education. The point is, have we also adopted the assessment and evaluation in that letter and spirit? So this is the discussion around that. So there are three components of outcome-based education, which is outcome-based curriculum, as we all know, then outcome-based teaching and learning that we do in our lectures, in our classes, and then, of course, the outcome-based assessment. Now, what happens? The challenge in assessment and challenge in evaluation is primarily happening because of the first two steps of outcome-based education. If we have done the part A of the puzzle correct, if we have done the part B of the puzzle correct, then the part C of the puzzle, which is assessment, becomes easy to implement. So I'll quickly go through this process so that we have the entire, conceptual understanding in our mind. So first is outcome-based education. It addresses the following questions. What do you mean? What want the students to be able to do? We are talking about, whenever we are talking of learning in the classroom, we are talking about four kinds of learning. We are talking about knowledge, we are talking about skill, we are talking about behavior, and we are talking about attitude. So four, things should change in the student from the day he joined my course as a faculty and to the day I declare him pass in my course. There should be a clear improvement in knowledge, clear improvement in skill set, clear improvement in behavior and attitude of my student. So first is what I want students to be able to do. Then second is how I can help my students through the teaching and learning process to ensure that they achieve what I have intended them to achieve. How can I evaluate whether or what level of attainment has been there for the students? And can I close the loop? Close the loop means if there is some issue in the attainment, can I rearrange my session plan? Can I rearrange my teaching learning process so that collectively as a teacher and the learners, we achieve the outcome? So this is the first two things are, quite important. The first two part of OBE. Now, when we are writing the course objective, because as a teacher, I'm responsible for my course. So are the course outcomes correct? Now, when I say course outcomes correct, there are three things which are important. One is course outcomes should be very specific, they should be very measurable, and they should be achievable. Now, specific means it should be clearly identified that what they would be able to do and perform. It should be measurable, and that is why we always use those action verbs. And then, of course, it should be achievable. Achievable means that within the, depending on whether I'm having 2 credit course or 3 credit course or 4 credit course, I'm going to have 30 lectures or 45 lectures or 60 lectures in some cases, whether I would be able to achieve all those outcomes in that stipulated time. This is what outcome should be clearly mentioning. Then comes my instructional objective or the course outcome should have 3 components very clearly identified. And this should be available to my student from the day one. Day one means when I'm sharing my course objective with them, when I'm sharing my session plan with them, they should clearly know that what they are going to learn, how they are going to be assessed, and what teaching tools are going to be used by the faculty member in those sessions. So the good or nicely written course objective have 3 components. The performance component, it means what kind of performance I'm expecting. The condition component, it means what kind of conditioning will be there, what will be teaching tools I'm going to use, and third will be the criteria component, on what basis I'm going to assess them. Now, when I'm saying condition, like for example, let's say I'm taking a course of statistics. So whether I'm going to use R, I'm going to use SPSS, I'm going to use Microsoft Excel, I'm going to use Google Sheets. What is going to be used by me? That should be clearly, defined in the beginning. So these are two small examples that how the learning objective should be identified or course outcome should be identified. Just an example, the first one is write a customer reply letter with no spelling mistakes by using a word processor. It means the performance criteria is that at the end of my course, my students will be able to write a customer reply letter. The measurable criteria is going to be that there should not be any spelling mistakes. And the condition of performance is that they should be able to use the word processor. Another example is copy a table from the spreadsheet into a word processor document within 3 minutes without reference to the manual. So what is the outcome which I'm expecting? Copy a table from the spreadsheet into the word processor. The measurable criteria is they should be able to do in 3 minutes, and condition of performance is that they should not be referencing to the manual. Here, all the three things are very clearly identified. What performance is going to be there? What is the condition? What teaching tools I'm going to utilize? And third, how I'm going to measure their performance. Now, the important point is that you all must be using Bloom's taxonomy, of course. There are clear levels of learning. The levels of learning are knowledge, comprehension, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Now, we have so many, doubts by faculty members. They say that students are not coming to the class, attending the classes, or if they are even present in the class physically, they drift off, they are not available in the class mentally. So the point is why this is happening. Now, there was an interesting discussion yesterday by Furkan sir also, on the first day. He mentioned that a faculty should lecture only for 10 hours. The same point is I'm trying to, there are 12 in engineering. We have 12 course outcomes, PO1 program outcomes from PO1 to PO12. The first 5 outcomes are domain dependent. Domain dependent means a faculty can cover those 5 using the lecturing method, but the remaining 7 cannot be covered using the lecture method. Now, if something is not, you cannot cover as a faculty using the lecturing method. So how to cover those remaining 7 program outcomes? In case of engineering, I'm saying, to cover those remaining 7 outcomes, it is very essential that other activities are built in the class. So 10 hours of lecturing, then what we talk about flipped classroom. Share the teaching notes in advance. Try to make the class challenging. Try to have the activities which are more challenging to the students. So to have more challenging activities, the outcomes should be more challenging. Knowledge and comprehension are not challenging activities. The challenging activities, the challenging outcomes are when you go to the higher order of learning, which is analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So when you are writing your course outcomes as a faculty member, the first thing is that your 5-6 course outcomes which are there, they should not be of knowledge and comprehension level. They should be analysis, synthesis, and evaluation level. Now, why I'm sharing this in the beginning? Because the assessment and evaluation is based on how we are going to measure the attainment of these objectives by my class, by the set of the learners for which I am responsible. Now, this is the kind of backbone of the assessment process. It says that we should have course outcome, we should have course overview, we should have course level test items. What it means that for course outcome, I should initially, in the beginning itself, for every course outcome, I should design a course level test item. It means if I'm asking my questions, I'm taking a course of industrial engineering, I'm taking a course of operations management in MBA program, and I'm also taking a course of industrial engineering and mechanical engineering. Now, industrial engineering and operations management, if you ask me, they have very similar kind of syllabus, but the learning outcomes are very different. A mechanical engineering student, if he is doing the course of industrial engineering, the outcome is very different. While if a MBA student, a normal general MBA student, doing a course of operations management in first semester or second semester, the course outcomes, the learning outcomes are very different. So what it means, if on my engineering program, if in the industrial engineering program, the course level outcome is that they should be able to design the plant layout for a say manufacturing plant. So design the plant layout for a manufacturing plant. The test item will be having certain data using which those students will be able to design the layout of the shop floor. But when the same topic I'm dealing with MBA students, I'm not having the outcome as designing the layout. There, the understanding should be that they are able to learn what is the meaning of plant layout, how those various portions on a shop floor are nested together, they are close to each other, which areas can be at a distance from each other, what is the meaning of frequency of travel between two departments. So in their case, the test item will be different. In the case of industrial engineering paper in mechanical engineering, the test item will be different. So when we are creating the course outcome, we are trying to achieve higher order learning. So those course level outcome or course level test items should be designed for higher order learning. Like if I'm saying to my class in mechanical engineering that you will be able to design the plant layout for a manufacturing plant. And in the examination paper, I'm asking a question that define plant layout. In that case, can I actually say that I have measured the attainment of course outcome? If I want to measure the attainment of course outcome, then the test item should also be of the similar level. Then comes every course has units. So the syllabus is divided into 5 or 6 units. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5. Now, when we talk of these units, now it is allowed that unit level outcome can have second level of learning, that is comprehension. So in unit level outcome, you can write certain outcomes which are of second level comprehension. Comprehension means after doing this unit, the person should be able to comprehend. Now, comprehend means he can be, the action verb will be write in your own words, or it can be different setting, write in a different setting. So this kind of test items we need to decide, we need to design to understand that comprehension has taken place. Then comes the lecture. Every unit is going to be covered in 7 to 10 lectures, depending on the depth of that unit. So in those 7 to 10 lectures, now here, a faculty member can write a lecture outcome which can have the first level of learning. It means knowledge can be there in the lecture outcome. It means when I'm taking the, as yesterday or day before, Furkan sir was mentioning that faculty out of 40-hour syllabus or out of 40-hour session plan, 10 sessions can be devoted or dedicated to lectures. So when I'm taking a lecture, I'm trying to make the topic acquainted with those students. Now, in the process of acquaintance, knowledge is also very important. It means I'm trying to give them definition of plant layout also. So in lecture outcome, there can be first level of learning, and that is why when I'm designing the lecture level test item, there can be test items which are define this, explain this. This can be there in the first level of test items for lectures. But when we talk about units, when we talk about course or the final examination, then in that case, those kind of questions should not be there. Define this, differentiate between this. This should not be there. And that is what brings us to the assessment and evaluation. There are two parts or two words here: assessment, evaluation. Now, assessment means the process of collection of data. Evaluation is the final thing. Final thing means I'm going to evaluate my student and say that you are passing in first division. You are completing my course with distinction. You are passing my course with this much percentage or this much grade. This is the final evaluation. So final evaluation is basically the outcome of or attainment of the learning. But to ensure that the evaluation is good, assessment becomes very crucial. And assessment is what a faculty is doing at the end of each lecture. So my course is to be delivered in 40 different lectures. I should have test items prepared for each of the lectures. It means it is my responsibility as faculty member. It is not responsibility of my department or responsibility of my HOD or responsibility of my dean or my leadership of the institution. It is my responsibility to ensure that in my class, in my lecture, whatever attainment was desired, whatever outcome I had decided, that outcome is attained by the students. So assessment is process of gathering data to measure the attainment of course goals. Now, assessment, of course, would vary with the teaching process, the teaching tools that you are going to use. You know, I take an example here. When you are preparing the teaching plan, you should identify, you should take a note what all teaching infrastructure is available in your department. Let's say you are subscribing to some data, you are subscribing to some online journals. Are you actually using those infrastructure, using that infrastructure in your teaching learning process? Now, I take a small example. Let's say we are subscribing to online journals. Now, I can create a peer activity because only 10 should be lectures. So what I'm going to do in those remaining 30 hours of my course, in those 30 hours, I should design challenging activities. We are talking about flipped classroom. We are talking about blended learning. Now, to reach the high level of knowledge, to reach the high level of skill, to reach the high level of behavior and attitude from one level to the another, there can be various ways. There can be a way of reading articles. There can be a way of listening to lecture. There can be a way of, listening to some podcast. There can be a way of listening to some YouTube video, listening to some or watching some TED Talk video. What it means, there are various tools available in Education 5.0. Now there are various tools available to a faculty member to ensure that the learning is taking place in my class. Now, to ensure that learning takes place, I have to create class which are more engaging. Only lecturing is not going to make my class very interesting. And today, those Generation Z students, they are not ready to listen to their parents. They are not ready to take lecture from their parents. So how can we expect them to be open to pure lecturing from the faculty members? So faculty member has to design the lectures using flipped, using blended learning modes, using the various tools which are available. They have to design their lectures in such a way. The session plan becomes very crucial. In which session, which tool I'm going to use is to be pre-decided and should be made available to the student on the day one. Now, all the ERPs that we are using, all the learning management systems the universities are using, they have those options available. For every session, there is a window where you can attach a link. There is a window where you can attach some video. there is a link where you can attach some teaching material or some other course material which is to be read by the student first before coming to the lecture. But are we using that in letter and spirit? Are we actually designing our entire session plan, session by session, identifying that in which session, what teaching method I'm going to use, what teaching tool I'm going to use? So, as I was saying, if you are subscribing to large number of journals, you can make a peer activity. You can divide your class in 4 groups, and you can give them that this group number 1 will read these 2 articles. Group number 2 will read these 2 articles. Group number 3 will read these 2 articles. Group number 4 will read these 2 articles. So what is happening in effect? As a faculty, you are reading and identifying 8 good articles about that topic. And then your students are also reading those 8 articles, and look at the discussion in the class. Then in the class, then those groups will share their learning from those articles. So that will be a challenging class. It will not be a pure lecture class. And when that happens, the testing tool, the assessment tool should also be based on that. Now, what is required? You cannot ask your students that you find articles and read. You have to be meticulous, that identify those 8 articles, give those 8 articles in 4 groups, two each, and share the link beforehand. Before the session, at the beginning itself, you should share those links. So that is kind of one-time effort. I would say that as a faculty, lecturing is more difficult, because for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, you are speaking at a very high pitch. You know, after the lecture, you are going to take those, Kantika and all those, Ayurvedic medicines to ease your throat. That is not required. You can use the energy of your students. Give them the right guidance. Give them the right direction, because they are bubbling with energy. They are full of enthusiasm. The point is, are you able to engage them in meaningful activities, in interesting, engaging activities in your class? If you can do that, then your assessment tools, your testing tools should also be designed around that. So if you are having a class test, if you are having a quiz, if you are giving them some assignment, if you are giving them some viva, you are giving them some term paper, some oral presentation, some case study, some lab report, some live data, some industry data, then for every such session, your testing assessment tool will be different. If you are doing this, there is a question on slow learners and advanced learners. In 2 sessions, in 3 sessions, you will be able to identify in your class that which are the slow learners and which are the advanced learners. And why I'm saying this, if you are using testing tool in every lecture in the last 5 minutes, you would come to know very soon that which are the slow learners. You need not wait till the class test 1, which happens after 4 weeks. You take 1 week to evaluate those answer scripts. So after 5 weeks, you come to know which students are slow, which students are fast. But by that time, 1/3 of your semester is gone. Can you take corrective measures at that stage? If you follow the new age assessment tools, if you follow the Generation Z assessment tools, you will be finding out which are the slow learners in your class very, very soon. Then comes the evaluation. Now, if you are using the assessment tools correctly, meticulously, in a very structured and predefined way, then learning would be very effective in your classroom. Your students learning, you can manipulate, you can individualize, you can customize your technique depending on the ability of the student, which is possible only if you are effectively using the assessment. Now comes the evaluation. Now, when we are talking of evaluation, the question is, evaluation is at the end. Now, if you have done the assessment right, then evaluation will always give you good results. I'll have a discussion about evaluation very quickly. I'll skip the slide because we have less time now. What are the factors which are inhibiting the assessment? Because I'm trying to answer these questions in the remaining part of my presentation, the time which I'm left with now. The tendency for teachers is to assess quantity and presentation of work rather than quality of learning. What it means, when we are asking students to, when we are assessing students in the class, we are not assessing their quality of learning. Rather, what we are doing, we are trying to identify and find out the quality of the presentation. Now, greater attention is given to marking and grading. Much of it is tending to lower self-esteem of students rather than providing advice for improvement. What it means, that we are rather comparing students with the students. We are comparing that you are slow learner, you are advanced learner, your marks are good, your marks are bad. So this is basically further reducing the self-esteem of students, because you are identifying them in groups. These are slow learners. After 5 weeks, what you are doing, these are slow learners of my class, these are advanced learner of my class, and that is, that is how there is lower self-esteem. But if you are using test items in every class, in every lecture, in every session, then you will not be defining or identifying them as different groups, and in that case you can mold your teaching methodology and help each and every student in your class. Now, we are then not going to compare one student with other student. Now, we all know there are three kinds of assessments. One is diagnostic, which is what should be the first level of learning. Like if I'm taking a course of research methodology, I understand or I assume that they are already have gone through the course on business statistics, and that is why that is how they are ready for research methodology course. So one is diagnostic. Then comes formative. Now, formative assessment means what we are discussing right now. This assessment is having a small tools of testing, with the help of which we are providing feedback to students and we are trying to improve their performance. Now, if your formative assessment is nicely designed, is nicely done in your sessions, in your classroom, then the learning students will be motivated for improved performance and better learning in your course. The summative assessment is more again, regarding the final grade. When we are finding the sum total of the learning, so that's summative assessment. Then comes, as a faculty member, more so in case of management faculty members, management department faculty members, when they are using a questionnaire, they are finding out the validity and reliability of the questionnaire. But as a teacher, when I design the class test 1, class test 2, the pre-exam or the main exam or the testing tools in my sessions, am I checking the validity? Am I checking the reliability of, because that test piece is also nothing but a questionnaire. So when I'm doing this questionnaire for my research paper, I'm paying attention to the validity and reliability. But am I paying a similar attention to validity of assessment and reliability of assessment? So this is a small discussion I would share with you, that how confident we are about the marks or grades that we are giving to our students. So validity, of course, we all know, refers to the degree by which our assessment measures the learning outcome. So what is the validity? Validity can be tested by how appropriate are the questions, how meaningful are the questions, how useful are the questions. Now, what is the meaning of this validity? Now, validity would be, there has been a lot of discussion regarding the validity and reliability of the 12th CBSE board marks for 2021. We have, there was a 13-member committee that devised a system that 30% weightage will be given to 10th marks, 30% weightage will be given to the marks of 11th, and 40% marks will be weightage will be given to the activities or the continuous assessment that has been done in the 12th standard. And on the basis of that, 100% marks will be there. And then they will be normalized on the basis of the performance of a school over last 3 years. They were trying to devise a system, CBSE, those expert group, which can say that the results are valid and results are reliable. So look at that effort. As a teacher, as a faculty member, are you paying similar attention to the validity and reliability of your testing tools? As a subject area expert, because universities have subject area experts or subject area heads, universities have HOD of the departments, they have dean of the departments. At your course level, because validity and reliability becomes very crucial if there are multiple teachers taking the same course in multiple classes. So let's say there are more number of students, more than 60. So there are 120, 180, 720, there can be any number. If the number is large and teachers are different and the assessment and the outcomes are same, so whether it is valid and whether it's reliable. And there are a number of ways in which it can be tested. There are so many cases when the company comes for employment in the 4th year, they ask question to the student and the student says that it was there in the 1st semester. So by now I learned it 4 years back. So now I have forgotten it. The reason is because the learning was only at the level 1, that is knowledge or comprehension level. If the learning of course happens at the higher order learning, then a student will never say, like, if I learn how to drive a bicycle, then I develop that skill. I'm not using bicycle for last maybe 20-25 years, but even if today you give me a bicycle, I'm very confident I'll be able to drive that bicycle. I know how to drive a car. I might not be driving car for last, say, 2 years, 1 year, but I am very certain if you give me a car, I'll be able to drive that. The reason is we have learned this as a skill. So from knowledge, we must take them to skill. So if I'm just asking my students that what is plant layout, they are very likely to forget that. But if I'm giving them some data and asking them to design the layout themselves, I'm going for analysis and application level. In that case, the learning would be more like skill. And then the assessment would be more, the learning would be more sustainable. They will be carrying this learning for a longer duration. So that is why validity becomes very important. The students are scoring 100 out of 100 marks. You gave the student in the 1st year good marks for that course. And when the company is coming in 4th year, the student is saying that now they do not remember. It means whether the assessment was valid. When you gave them 80% marks, 90% marks in the 1st year, whether that assessment was valid. Are they actually having 90% knowledge or 90% skill of that particular course? Because in the 4th year, they are saying they do not remember that particular course or that particular subject. So validity and reliability becomes very crucial. We all know what is reliability. Reliability is basically consistency of test scores. And we all know this test retest method we must have used for our research papers. We know that equivalent forms, class 60 students of section A, 60 students of section C, 60 students of section C, different groups. Are they performing similar on the assessment tool? Is the assessment tool dependent on the concerned class teacher? So all these are reliability assessments. So test, retest, the same kind of test piece which you have designed, you are using in the subsequent year, 2nd year, 3rd year, how your class is performing on those test pieces, is their performance. And that is why to take care of this, difference of assessment, we have committees, examination committees in the departments, which are for moderation of the results. So moderation of results is required because our test pieces are not very valid and reliable. A faculty may decide students are not paying attention, so I'll make a difficult course, or I will make a difficult test piece, or I'll have a difficult examination. Just by this mindset that I'm going to create a difficult examination, we have actually gone down on the reliability and the validity of the test piece. And this happens so often, and that is why we have moderation committees at the end. What we are going to make you learn, how we are going to assess your learning, that should be available to the student right from the day one. There should not be any surprises later on that I'm going to make a difficult question paper this year. This kind of surprise should not happen. They should be aware well in advance what is going to be the three parts of outcome-based education. What is going to be the performance, what is going to be the tools which are going to be used, and how I'm going to be assessed, how my learning is going to be assessed. So this is very important. And how we can ensure this, reliability and validity. I'll take 2-3 small slides and then I'll conclude my discussion. But these are important, at the subject expert level, if not at the HOD level, at the teacher level, because for my class, I am responsible as faculty. It is my responsibility that the students of my class are having the attainment of the learning outcomes for my course, for my course outcomes. So the first thing is the test item analysis. The first is facilitation value. What is the meaning of facilitation value? How easy is the test piece? Now, we assume that the performance of students, the quality of students is not following normal distribution, but it is following the Gaussian distribution. Now, Gaussian distribution is a little skewed distribution than normal distribution. So what is the purpose here? The purpose is we can find out that, let's say in a class of 100, these 30 are top performers and these 30 are lower performers. It means they are below average and these 30 are better than average. So the central 40% are normal students, average students. We have top 30, we have lower 30. So what is the meaning of facilitation value? When we are asking a question, if everyone is answering the question right, it means the question is very easy. If everyone is answering the question wrong, in the test paper, I'm saying, I'm taking a test piece. It can be in the lecture level, it can be at the unit level, or it can be at the summative end term exam level. How the class performed on my test piece, how the class performed on my question. If everyone answered it right, it means the facilitation value was 1. It means entire class could answer that correctly. If the answer was wrong by everyone, it means 2 things. Number 1, either the question is not relevant or the question is not checking attainment of any of the course objective or the unit objective or the lecture objective. Because otherwise it cannot happen that entire class is not answering the question right. It means there is some issue with the reliability and the validity of the question. The question might not be valid as such. So this is the facilitation level. You should have a post-mortem on the performance of students in your question paper, that how easy were the questions. So facilitation value is total right answers divided by total number of students. And we are not taking the central 40 students. We are comparing with the top 30 students, the bottom 30 students. So we are taking how the top students are performing, how the bottom students are performing, how the advanced learners are performing, how the slow learners are performing in a particular given test piece, known as facilitation value. Then comes the second tool to test that. It is known as Discrimination Index, DI. What it means? Discrimination Index is how the performance is different. How the performance is different means if the facilitation level is 1, if everyone is going to do the, what is the meaning of discrimination? As a teacher, I should be able to reward the better students, those who are performing better, and I should be able to identify those students, those who are having lesser level of attainment. Now, for example, in CBSE board, let's assume that the question paper is out. Somehow the question paper is leaked and available, on the website a day in advance. And let us say the question paper was the sanctity was maintained. But is there going to be a difference in the performance of students? If the question paper is out, what is the total number of students in CBSE, those who are scoring 95, 99, 100% of marks? If the paper is having sanctity and nobody could see that paper, how many students are scoring 95, 99 and 100 marks? Is there a difference? If there is no difference, whether paper was declared in advance or paper was available in advance or whether paper was not available in advance, in that case, we would say that the assessment and evaluation process is not having any discrimination. The number of students scoring 100% marks when the paper was on website is same as when the paper was not available on the website. It means what? The evaluation system is lacking in the discrimination index. Discrimination index means there should be questions where upper group is able to find out the correct answer or answer it correctly, while the lower group is not answering it correctly in the same number, in the same ratio. If that happens, it means question has some discrimination index. Some students are performing it correctly. Some students are not performing it correctly. It means the facilitation value is also not 1. It is having some value. It is not 0. It means the students are finding the question challenging, because it is very essential. When we say open book exam, we all know, we all believe that open book exam is more difficult than closed book proctored exam. And this is the direction in which we are moving. Make the test pieces challenging. Make the, we have been hearing about this, that in students could pass the course this year because it was MCQ exam. It was multiple choice questions, and that is why students could pass. So designing a multiple choice question paper is in fact more difficult than designing a subjective question paper. I'll take the third, test item analysis. This is the test item analysis known as distractors. When you are designing a multiple choice question, you should find out what are the misconceptions, what are the distractors. I'm taking an example here. Let us say you have devised a question in your multiple choice exam. What is the correct answer of 375 multiplied by 435? And the options are, you are saying A option 1 lakh, B option 1,25,000, C option 1,63,125, and option D 2 lakh. Now, this is the question which you have designed for your MCQ. What is the level of difficulty in this question? How many students of upper group will be able to answer it correctly, and how many students of lower group will be able to answer it correctly? In this group, as effectiveness of distractors is not there. We all know if we multiply 5 by 5, the last value should always be 5. In A, last value is 0. In B, last value is 0. In D, last value is 0. So I'm quite certain the entire class would answer this question correctly. But if entire class is answering this question correctly, are we actually assessing the learning level of our students? As a teacher, am I actually assessing the learning which happened in my classroom, the learning which is attained by my students? So this distractor becomes very crucial, that when we are designing an MCQ, how many distractors are there? How many misconceptions are there? And this can be identified, because if the more the distractors, the more the misconceptions, the lower group will be giving you the wrong answer, while the higher group, the advanced learner, will be giving you the correct answer. So when we are designing a multiple choice question, we should see how many effective distractors have been used in my MCQ. If we are not doing this kind of analysis, if we are not doing some test, retest kind of thing, in that case, maybe I'm making it to a test paper, maybe I'm making a question paper, which is too easy for a student. And if it is too easy for a student, the students would say that this teacher makes very easy question paper. We do not require 2 hours time. After half an hour, we'll be able to answer the entire question paper. Now, if they are able to answer the entire 2-hour question paper in half an hour, because it was MCQ, it means the question paper was not designed correctly. It was not having the challenge level which it is expected to have. So these are test item analysis. When you are designing a question paper, whether it is subjective, whether it is MCQ, whether it is lecture level, whether it is unit level, whether it is course outcome level, it should be designed in a way that it is full of challenge. There should be some discrimination between the advanced learners and slow learners, because we want to reward the better performing students, and we do not want to showcase that our university or our department or this particular faculty member is actually asking two simple questions, very easy questions. The students are not having challenge of even sitting for the entire duration for the examination. And if that happens, the outcome will not be, assessed correctly. Then comes the last part of my discussion. I would say I've tried to cover it in a little, fast way because I missed my first 15-20 minutes because of the technology challenge. For assessment, it is very essential that you should use rubrics. Now, rubrics are generally used. You can use subjective questions, as I discussed. You can use MCQ multiple choice questions. You can use these kind of tools in your lecture level assessment. You can use this in your unit level assessment. The point is, in your lecture level assessment, because there will be lectures, you'll be having some lectures also, so you can test the level 1 of learning, that is knowledge. You can ask a simple question, define plant layout, accepted, because it's lecture level outcome. But when we are talking of unit level outcome, it should not be define something. It should be at the next level, comprehension level. And then if it is course outcome in your final exam, there should not be any question of the first two levels. If you are asking questions of level 1 and level 2 in your end-term exam of your course, in summative assessment of your course, it means that you are making a question paper which is very easy and not challenging for the students. The question assessment should be little challenging. Only then students will be motivated to learn. If the image is that the faculty ask very simple questions, very easy questions, the department ask very easy questions, or the paper is very simple, then the challenge to learn will be less. Motivation to learn will be less. So you must design the assessment and evaluation in such a way that it is challenging. It is having some component which is challenging also. Now, there are so many activities, because we are talking of education 5.0. We are not going to have 40 lectures in my 40 sessions, because if I'm going to have 40 lectures in my 40 sessions, in that case, I'm old age teacher. In that case, I am not fit for Generation Z students. They are not going to be involved, engaged in my classroom. If I want to engage them, if I want to involve them in my classroom, then I must bring in lots of engaging, challenging activities in my classroom. So what is rubrics? Rubrics is used for complicated assignments. And rubric is something which I'm very certain that Sharda University must be using rubrics, because you are following outcome-based education. But please ensure that every teacher, every faculty member uses complicated assignment in the classroom. Design a rubric. Rubrics help in transparency. A student cannot come to the department head and say that this student of my class got more marks because teacher is biased, and I got less marks because teacher is not favoring me. This happens only when assignment is complicated, but rubric is not designed, or if it is designed, it is not shared with these students. So if you are taking any complicated assignment, if you are taking any multiple lecture assignments, or if the department is taking any multiple, like let's say capstone project, if department is taking any multiple semester kind of project or semester kind of activity, rubrics should be very clearly defined, and rubrics should be given in advance to the students so that they know what is going to be assessed, what are going to be level of learning, and how I'm going to get different marks from others. how my learning would be assessed. So especially for class projects, case study discussions, seminar presentations, oral presentations, project work, innovative designs, live industry projects, capstone projects, incubation projects. You are asking them to write essays, reports, jobs. You are asking them to comment on podcasts. You are asking them to write notes on TED Talks around your course material. You are asking them to submit assignment based on articles in your classroom, industry-based assignments you are asking them. For all these complicated assignments, you please design rubric and share the rubric with the students in advance. So rubrics bring consistency in assessment in complex tasks, and rubric gives clearly what are the number of criteria and what is the characteristic or criteria on which I am going to award marks or assess students. So rubrics are very essential for effective assessment, continuous assessment and evaluation. So design rubrics. So what are rubric structure? You all know that. Two-dimensional metrics. One dimension show performance criteria. What is the performance? Second, show description. Description means what is expected, like course objective said, no spelling mistake. So no spelling mistake is the descriptive indicator. So if in the assignment, one student is having no spelling mistakes, they are going to get more marks. If in the assignment, a student was careless and there were multiple spelling mistakes, the marks would be less. This is one descriptive indicator. There can be many descriptive indicators which you can design in rubric. It's a two-dimensional matrix. So create rubrics for your test pieces, for your complicated activities. The most important point is that continuous assessment is riding on feedback. The faculty member is giving constant feedback to the students in every session, in every lecture, and trying to ensure that learning happens in his or her classroom. It's the responsibility of teacher. It is not the responsibility of the department or the subject expert or the HOD or the dean to ensure that learning is happening in your classroom. The learning of your classroom is the responsibility of the teacher. And I say in my talks generally that in 1991 we had liberalization. So Lakshmi was, all those clutches were removed from Lakshmi, and we, from using those ambassadors and Fiats and Contessa and Premier Padmani, we have moved towards Hyundai and Maruti and these BMW, Audis and Mercedes. Same is going to happen with the education sector also. Last year, because of this new national education policy, even Mata Saraswati, those clutches have been removed. Now, as a teacher, you cannot continue to be an ambassador or Fiat or Premier Padmani or Contessa Classic. You can be of good value today. You can be a Contessa Classic, but in 5 years down the line, those Contessas and Premiers and ambassadors are going to be out of market. We are only going to have faculty members who are as agile, who are as outcome-based oriented or OBE expert like the Mercedes and Audis and BMWs of today. So there is going to be immense opportunity to faculty members. The point is that they should take it as a challenge and bring challenge to their classroom so that actual learning happens. So thank you so much. This is my peace of mind on assessment and evaluation. And I'll be very happy, Parulji, to answer questions. I do not know how much time is available.
Right, sir.
I'll be very happy to answer the questions.
Sir, if you permit, can I commit on your behalf that we can take the questions collectively towards the second session? There are a few questions which you have, I think you have touched upon those questions in your lecture very well. But if one or two questions are remaining, if you permit, can I commit on your behalf that we'll be taking it collectively at the end of Professor Dhar's lecture? Can I do that, sir?
Sure. First of all, my apology, ma'am.
No, sir. We understand technical glitches are part of the virtual mode, so we completely understand that, and our audience is also very patient, so we appreciate that as well.
Thank you
But
so
we
much.
don't
Thank you
want
so much.
Professor Dhar to be kept waiting. He has joined long back, so
Yeah.
we'll just move on to the next session. But before that, I would call upon Professor Rao to formally thank you for a very informative session, sir. I was just spellbound because there are a lot of corrective actions which need to be taken, and you have very intricately pointed out the difference between the assessment and the evaluation, starting from the basics and then delving deep into the basics of the assessment and evaluation. So thank you so much. And
I would just like to make one statement. There is a course by Dr. Mandal, who is a professor of IIT Kharagpur, on the SWAM platform. If you actually would like to learn, or the audience would like to learn more about assessment evaluation, I would recommend that course. Some of my slides, some of my discussion is inspired from his work, Dr. Mandal at IIT Kharagpur.
Sir, I'm just writing it in chat box, and our audience can refer to it. And thanks again. And over to you, Rao, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Parulji, for giving me a very, very tough task, because, I'm now sandwiched between Upendra sir and, Vikas Singh sir. Vikas Singh sir, you made a fantastic presentation. First of all, the amount of support you are showing towards the student community is plausible, sir. Because your entire presentation is very, very empathetic and supporting the students, there may be summative assessment or, formative assessment and diagnostic. First of all, many teachers from humanities and arts, they always complain that how we can evaluate and also measure the performance of the students. Because professional courses and engineering courses, technical courses, outcome-based education is there from the beginning. But recently, when we are mapping with COs, with CPOs or PEOs, PSOs, etc., these humanities faculty are facing a little bit difficulty. I think your session addresses that kind of questions, and a beautiful session, sir. Thank you so much for making such a wonderful session in a very short period. And we are sacrificing the Q&A session because we cannot eat away the time of the oncoming Professor Upendra sir. Thank you so much once again, sir. We wish to have continuous association with you. Please, I may invite you once again, sir, for our Sharda University for addressing the other faculty members. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So we extend a very warm welcome to Professor Upendra Dhar, and it has been witnessed and proven that brick and mortar is not that what makes an educational institution. It is the human, that is faculty in this case, which brings in the competitive advantage. And to talk about that, and I think we all have experienced and we are part of it. The pandemic has brought upon the level of upskilling and reskilling that we would have witnessed maybe 5 years down the line, and it has been thrust upon us. So we invite Professor Upendra Dhar to share his valuable insights. But before that, a brief introduction. He is a very well-known faculty, and I think no amount of introduction would justice to his fame and glory. But as it is customary, let me quickly read out a brief introduction. Professor Dhar is presently Vice Chancellor Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya Indore, a seasoned professional and an academician par excellence with over 3 decades of experience. He has conducted several management and faculty development programs and has also been guest faculty for the NTPs, FTPs, which are being conducted at various IIMs and IITs. And besides undertaking consultancy assignments, he has co-authored more than 620 publications and he has supervised around 34 scholars, and they have been awarded PhD under his able supervision. Dr. Dhar has also been awarded National Fellowship by ISTD in 2002 and Ravi J. Mathai National Fellowship by AIMS in 2018. He has been on the panel of reviewers of number of journals of repute, and he has also been the panel of experts of various national accreditation agencies such as NBA and NEC. Sir, without much ado, I pass on to you. If you could hear us, I pass on the mic to you, sir. You can take over.
Thank you very much.
Parulji, just one more second. Friends, actually, Professor Upinder sir is also a member of the National Education Policy Implementation Committee, and we are blessed to have him today amongst all of us. Yeah, thank you, madam. Thank you, Upinder ji.
Thank you very much. At the outset, I would like to express my grateful thanks to Professor Prasad Rao and all the authorities and organizing committee members at Sharjah University for giving me an opportunity to have interface with all the learned people, faculty, and also the students this afternoon. I'll be talking about recycling faculty for quality education. But before that, we need to understand why recycling is required. What does national education policy say about it? What makes us think about recycling faculty? In National Education Policy 2020, there is a specific section on faculty, and it emphasizes that faculty is a very important pillar of the education system. So it has addressed it as motivated, energized, and capable faculty. That's how it is titled in the National Education Policy. So we need to understand the genesis, what it says, and then arises the question of recycling and what are the skills which are becoming more important now, and we need to reskill our faculty accordingly. The most important factor in the success of higher education institutions is the quality and engagement of the faculty. Professor Vikas Singh has been talking about engagement of students, which is very important. At the same time, it is equally important to ensure the engagement of faculty. Acknowledging the criticality of faculty in achieving the goals of higher education, various initiatives have been introduced in the past several years to systematize recruitment and career progression. Incidentally, as Professor Prasad Rao was mentioning, I was part of the implementation committee, particularly related to the faculty affairs, and to ensure equitable representation from various groups in the hiring of faculty. Compensation levels of permanent faculty in public institutions have also been increased substantially. That's what has been happening over the period of time. Various initiatives have also been taken towards providing faculty with professional development opportunities. However, despite these various improvements in the status of the academic profession, faculty motivation in terms of teaching, research, and service in higher education institutions remains far lower than the desired level. As we know, all of us are from the same profession. Teaching may not be the first preference of most of the people who come to higher education. The various factors that lie behind low faculty motivation levels must be addressed to ensure that each faculty member is happy. So now we no more talk about even NEP. is talking more about in terms of happiness than satisfaction. So each faculty member is happy, enthusiastic, engaged, and motivated towards advancing her or his students, institution, and profession. To this end, the policy recommends the following initiatives to achieve the best motivated and capable faculty in higher education institutions. As the most basic step, all higher education institutions will be equipped with the basic infrastructure and facilities, including clean drinking water. See, it has gone to minute levels. Clean drinking water, clean working toilets, blackboards, offices, teaching supplies, libraries, labs, and pleasant classroom spaces and campuses. Every classroom shall have access to the latest educational technology that enables better learning experiences. Teaching duties also will not be excessive and student-teacher ratios not too high. This is what National Education Policy 2020 emphasizes, so that the activity of teaching remains pleasant and there is adequate time for interaction with students, conducting research and other university activities. Faculty will be appointed to individual institutions and generally not be transferable across institutions, so that they may feel truly invested in, connected to, and committed to their institution and community. Further, faculty will be given the freedom to design their own curricular and pedagogical approach within the approved framework. So more freedom, more flexibility for faculty is concerned, including textbooks and reading materials, selections, assignments, and assessment. So in the times to come, as we will see the implementation of this policy NEP 2020, which is to be implemented in next 14 years now, because 1 year is already passed. It is to be implemented in, it was to be implemented in 15 years. 1 year is already passed. So we have next 14 years, gradually the policy will be implemented and we will see these changes taking place, empowering the faculty to conduct innovative teaching, research, and service as they see best will be a key motivator and enabler for them to do truly outstanding creative work. So creativity is seen as a very important factor. Excessive excellence will be further incentivized through appropriate rewards, promotions, recognitions, and movement into institutional leadership. This is also emphasized that once a faculty enters an institution, he or she needs to be prepared simultaneously for the leadership role, which we may not be doing now, but it is to be done, so that as soon as they assume a leadership role, they are already prepared for it. Meanwhile, faculty not delivering on basic norms will be held accountable. So accountability, we shall have to go up. In keeping with the vision of autonomous institutions, empowered to drive excellence, higher education institutions will have clearly defined, independent, and transparent processes and criteria for faculty recruitment. Whereas the current recruitment process will be continued, a tenure track, that is suitable probation period, shall be put in place to further ensure excellence. So during the times to come, as we will see the implementation of NEP 2020, we may have tenure tracks also. That means the people who will be coming under tenure track, for them, the eligibility conditions may be slightly different. For example, if I am teaching art, say music, performing art. Now, if I strictly insist on all those requirements which we normally adhere, we cannot get a person from the field, a person who is reputed, well-known in his field in the performing art, may not have a PhD degree. Now, how to get him and ensure that that his achievements, his knowledge is passed on to the students. There, it is the tenure track which will facilitate. There shall be a fast track promotion system for recognizing high impact research and contribution. So research is emphasized. A system of multiple parameters for proper performance assessment for the purposes of tenure, that is confirmed employment after probation, promotion, salary increases, recognitions, etc. These are getting revised, including peer and student reviews, innovations in teaching and pedagogy, quality and impact of research, professional development activities. And other forms of service to the institution and the community shall be developed by each higher education institution and clearly enunciated in its institution development plan. Say, we have been, say, for example, in applied disciplines, we have been talking about internship. But now it won't be only internship in industry. Community development is another area which has been introduced. And the students shall have to be, we shall have to encourage students to do the community-based projects. Even faculty shall have to get involved in such community-based projects. The presence of outstanding and enthusiastic institutional leaders that cultivate excellence and innovation is the need of the hour. So innovation is another area that is emphasized everywhere. Outstanding and effective institutional leadership is extremely important for the success of an institution and of its faculty. Excellent faculty with high academic and service credentials, as well as demonstrated leadership and management skills, will be identified early and trained through a ladder of leadership positions. Leadership positions shall not remain vacant, but rather an overlapping time period during transitions in leadership shall be the norm to ensure the smooth running of institutions. Institutional leaders will aim to create a culture of excellence that will motivate and incentivize outstanding and innovative teaching, research, and institutional service, and community outreach from faculty members and all higher education institution leaders. As we know, NAP 2020 recommends, in fact, it is going to be implemented now, that all institutions will be classified into three types of institutions, three categories we'll be having. One will be the research intensive universities. Second will be teaching universities. And the third will be autonomous degree granting colleges. One element which is very common between these three is research. So research will be emphasized. And of course, in research intensive universities, research will be emphasized more. So it will be research and teaching. Then teaching universities, there will be teaching and research. And then autonomous degree granting colleges, there also research will be an element, important element. Those who will be working in autonomous degree granting colleges will be able to move on to teaching and research intensive universities by virtue of their contribution through their publications. Now, specifically talking about the skills, what are the skills based on what national education policy has provided or what national education policy says about faculty? Based on that, what are the skills which are going to be very important and we need to ensure through continuous faculty development programs that these skills are developed. Some of them you would see are already there. We have been talking about these skills earlier also, but then now emphasis has to go up, emphasis has to increase. Number one, communication. Communication remains to be one of the most essential skills for teaching profession. Irrespective of the language, whichever language is chosen, whichever is the medium of instruction. But then the communication, one should be able to communicate very clearly, very effectively. That is important. So communication skills need to be developed. Communication skills are emphasized. Number one. Number two, adaptability. Adapting to the situation, adapting to the change, adapting to the changes which are going to be made in the curriculum, adapting to the changes which are going to happen so far as the pedagogy is concerned, adapting to the changes which are going to happen in the assessment system, as Professor Singh was just now mentioning about assessment, which is a very important element in the teaching learning process. Therefore, adaptability is very, very important skill. Further, managing and motivating the students remotely. This has happened now because of the, maybe you can say, because of the pandemic, which we are still facing this pandemic. This pandemic is not over. And this is only technology. It's only technology which has come to our rescue. And we remained connected. For last 1.5 years, we are connected to each other because of technology. And managing our resources remotely, dealing or say communicating with the students remotely, having virtual classes. So managing and motivating students in a virtual platform is very important. See, when my pandemic started last year, it was a shock for everybody. Nobody knew that such thing is going to happen. But I always appreciate the teachers who could manage to shift to the technology platform, could shift to the IT platform, immediately to the virtual platform, and remain connected with the students. And that's how it has been ensured that students do not lose any year. That continuity could happen because of technology. But then managing students, managing classrooms from a remote place, and on the virtual platform, for that skills are required. We need to develop these skills. Although by trial and error in this 18 months, certain skills have been developed. We have learned to do certain things which we were not knowing at all. But then there has to be more organized development in this area. Further, next skill that we talk about is resilience. It's another very fast emerging skill in which we need to develop ourselves. We need to develop the faculty. Further, collaboration. We have been always talking about collaboration, but collaboration has become more important today. So collaboration skills need to be developed. Leadership. I have just now shared with you what NEP says about leadership. So far as the faculty is concerned, faculty needs to be prepared for the leadership roles right from the beginning. So mentoring programs are going to be introduced so that anyone who joins afresh finds this profession attractive, finds this profession respectable, finds the role of great importance and relevance. Therefore, that mentoring has to begin from the beginning. And when we mentor, we need to mentor them also for the leadership role that may follow over the period of time. Further on, next skill is problem-solving skill. So problem-solving skills are essential. It is easy to talk about problems, but then we need skills to solve and have a problem-solving approach. And problem-solving approach can be taken by a faculty if we develop the problem-solving skills. Further, proactivity. One has to be proactive. So proactivity skills are important. That means looking ahead, what may follow, what may happen tomorrow. So we should be prepared for handling the situation that may follow. Further, contingency planning. One should be able to plan well. And though in certain disciplines like say management, we have been doing it. We have been planning the whole trimester, or we have been planning the whole semester and giving the complete schedule along with the handouts in the beginning of the term. But this has not been happening in all disciplines. So it will be now important for all disciplines, irrespective of the nature of the discipline. That means, say, whether it is an applied discipline or a liberal studies. So planning, contingency planning will be very important. So we need to develop these skills. Further on, presentation skills. Presentation skills, though presentation skills are part of communication skills, but experts prefer to segregate them. So on one hand, one may be very effective in communication, but at the same time, presentation skills are equally important. Presentation skills will support the communication skills. Further on, prioritization skills. One should be able to prioritize what to do first, what should be given priority. So it is recognized as a skill today. So one needs to learn, develop the skill to prioritize what must come first. Further on, emotional intelligence. These days, we are emphasizing on emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is seen by some experts as a set of skills which need to be developed. Some people say, some experts say, emotional intelligence can be developed over the period of time. It is possible to develop the social skills, to develop the emotional skills, which is social skills are part of emotional skills. So emotional skills as a formally, it is seen as a set of skills and they are very important now. So faculty needs to be developed. Empathy, another aspect. We have been talking about empathy, but then now it has become more important seeing the experiences. So one should be able to empathize. One should be able to place oneself in a student's shoes and see what are his or her problems. From the student's point of view, one should be able to understand the problem and then have a problem-solving approach and solve it. Further on, innovation. Innovation, again, how to be innovative. So we have to be innovative in our assessment methods, as Professor Vikas Singh has already shared with you in detail. So innovation is going to be very important in various aspects of teaching learning process. So one of the important aspects is assessment. So we have to be innovative. We have to do things differently. We have to do things differently so that we can assess the understanding, not only how much he is cramming. So we need not to test the memory power. We need to test how much the person has really understood, how much the person has really learned the subject. Further on, managing projects. Say project management we are talking about in the case of faculty today. Why? Because faculty needs, as I mentioned, faculty needs to be encouraged to plan the research projects, write the research projects, and submit the research projects to various sponsored bodies. Now, specifically, National Research Foundation is being established to encourage research in the country, irrespective of the background, whether we are a private university or a public university, irrespective of that. So there will be a level playing field. Therefore, faculty need to write the projects and manage the projects well, manage the projects, not only research projects, but community development projects. Again, that is another area that is coming up. So national education policy emphasizes on the community development as well. Therefore, community development projects are to be planned in proper way so that learning also happens at the same time. So these projects are to be done. They are likely to become part of normal curriculum. So for that, project management skills are required. Then we need to have entrepreneurial skills. Entrepreneurial skills. See, we have been talking traditionally about entrepreneurship. We have been talking about intrapreneurship, but here now experts are recommending the entrepreneurial skills. That means in education also we need to be enterprising and see how we can do the best. Best of the knowledge can be delivered. Best of the learning can be ensured so far as the students are concerned. Then the attention to detail. That is again a skill. Attention to detail. Simply giving some points is not enough. We need to pay attention to the detail, go in depth. And if we do that as teachers, the learning of the students will be more. The learning of we may be giving the project to the students, but then attention to detail is necessary while assessing such projects. Further on, we shall have to see how we can become fast learners, how our students can become fast learners. As Professor Singh was also mentioning about slow learners and fast learners. So we need to pay attention to all the segments of the students. On one hand, fast learners, on the other hand, slow learners. But at the same time, slow learner needs not to continue as a slow learner. We as teachers have to see how we can transform a slow learner into a fast learner. So learning quickly, but then it has to be learned correctly, not learning for the sake of learning. Further is another important aspect is the analytical skills. Analytical skills have always been important, particularly in certain disciplines like management and other such disciplines. But analytical skills now are going to be more important for all the disciplines. Therefore, we need to we need to plan the programs for continuous faculty development. When a faculty will be joining, a young man will be joining, or a young person will be joining, we have to mentor them. So senior people will have the responsibility to mentor the youngsters so that they learn what they are supposed to do. See, today we see in reality, when a young faculty comes, he or she may not be knowing how to set a question paper. So mentoring will take care of that aspect. He or she may not be knowing how to handle a class if some students are not paying attention. One does learn through experience. Like we have learned, see, when I started my career 44 years back as a teacher, I learned it, but I learned through experience, maybe initially by trial and error, but ultimately learned. But now, mentoring process will take care of it to facilitate the young teachers to develop themselves so that they find this profession attractive, so that they do not believe that we have come to teaching just because we could not get the profession of our choice. That's why we have ended up in teaching. That should not happen. So we must take pride of this profession. That's what is very important. That's why reskilling is important. Although some of these skills have already been there. Some of these skills have been there in some disciplines, but now it has to be across the board. This reskilling has to happen across the board. That's why this session it has been chosen to be reskilling faculty for quality education. Quality education is emphasized. Accreditation is going to be important over the period of time. So we need to learn how to ensure quality education, how to ensure that all elements of education are taken care of without compromising on any aspect. I have deliberately chosen not to use PPT because then we have a tendency to explain each point. So I may cross the time. I have deliberately not chosen PPT, but then I would like to stop here and I will be very happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Without PPT, also listening to is like Amrit Vani. If I can translate, it's like heavenly words for us academicians. So it was pure bliss listening to you. And thank you. You have very aptly started from the creating conducive environment, talking about criteria for performance, and then moving on to the essential skills. And it brought a number of lines of smiles on my face, being from HR and OB, when you talked about skills like emotional intelligence and resilience. So my salutations, and we, on behalf of Sharda University, we extend a heartfelt thank to you. And I would like to call upon Professor Vijay Arora, sir, to formally thank you and propose a vote of thanks. Sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Parul. I don't know whether Professor Dhar remembers me or not.
I fully remember you,
Facebook, sir. We are Facebook friends and we are known to each other. And one common link was when I left MET, a couple of months back, thereafter he joined and almost handling the same portfolio that I was handling there. So we are lucky that Sharda University to have Professor Dhar, an accomplished professor, accomplished teacher, scientist, a human being, to talk on the skilling of faculty. And he has more than justified our trust, because he asked, not only covered the aspect of the skilling of the faculty, but what is expected of a good faculty, what is expected of a faculty who is respected, who is loved, and who is remembered by the students. And in fact, he touched upon the entire cycle of the teaching that a teacher has to undergo. A young faculty when he has to learn a lot, and then a senior faculty when he has to mentor the young faculty. In fact, this national education policy touched upon very explicitly what is expected of this and how to prepare our teachers, our faculty to effectively implement this NEP. We require quality education. We require the education which is relevant. We require education where students can enjoy. And all these things can be facilitated only by a faculty if he loves quality education, if he loves students, he is sensitive to their needs, and if he is able to convert, he has rightly mentioned, converting the slow learners to the fast learners. Because our ultimate aim is to have excellence in academics, excellence in teaching, excellence in teaching learning process. So he touched so many aspects, whether the entrepreneurial skills, whether it's the making the classroom a dialogue, interactive, not a simple monologue where a teacher is just speaking for 50 minutes and leaving it to the students, whether they learn or not. But it has to be interactive, and teacher has to see that every student learns and take him to the higher level. So, Professor Dhar, we know that you will more than justify our trust, and I am sure that all the participants have received more than what they expected in this particular session. Thank you very much for agreeing to our request. Thank you very much for giving your input. So
Thank you.
I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It's also a pleasure to hear you. So thank you, Arora, sir. Thank you so much for proposing the vote of thanks. And then we move on to question answer round. Vikas, sir, if you could hear me, I'll first take one or two questions for you. There was a question about the basic characteristics of the assessment and evaluation, which you have touched very well. I'll take another one, which is coming from Professor Pradeep Agarwal, who have talked about validation test in your presentation. So his question is that whether reliability and validation tests required in case of faculties taking more than one section, is it the subject-based validation test that you're referring to, or maybe it is from the student's perspective that if we are teaching in more than one section, then probably we need to go again for validity and reliability. Sir, I hope you have got the question.
Yeah, yes. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir, very much, please. Right.
Validity is validity of question paper is very essential. Whether you have a large class or whether you are having a small class, a specialization class having say 10-15 students only, or a like kind of MTech class, Masters of Engineering class having 10 students only. Validity is necessary at all the class sizes. Now reliability is more, I would say, has more meaning if there are multiple sections, multiple classes, multiple faculty members are being involved, so their reliability becomes very essential. So both validity and reliability is essential. Even if I'm taking one section or there is only one section of students I'm taking, as a faculty, it's my responsibility to ensure that my test paper, my test piece, whether it is for lecture or unit or the end-term examination, whether it's formative or summative, they should be valid and they should be having a certain degree of reliability. So both are essential, irrespective of the size of the class, I would say that.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. One last question that is coming from Professor R.P. Sinha. How the facilitation factor is going to help the evaluators?
Facilitation factor shows what is the level of challenge. If there is no discrimination in the class, if everybody is scoring 100 marks in my course, then I cannot say that the learning of each student is at 100%. And if it is there at 100%, then of what level, whether it's knowledge or comprehension or application or analysis, what is the attainment of different levels. So it should not be 100%, everybody is answering all my questions correct. If that is happening, then I need to relook at, as evaluator, I need to relook at my test piece or test question paper. It should be challenging. There should be some discrimination that good students, are, or the advanced learners are attempting some questions and scoring more marks, and those slow learners are attempting those questions but not getting the full marks, maybe not getting 5 out of 5, they are getting 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. That discrimination should be there. So that's the duty of the evaluator or the teacher or the faculty member when they are designing the test piece or designing the question paper.
Thank you so much, sir, and we really appreciate that you have spared your valuable time and you have delivered what you committed. You were there all along the session. Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
With this, yes, sir. With this, we move on to the last segment of the day. I'm not sure if Professor Adhar is still with us, but I had one question for him. Probably he has already left. So we move on to the last segment of the day, and we are going to deliberate on the topic transforming the culture of assessment for optimizing learning and development, and the topic would be taken up by Professor Raghvail. He is presently serving as Vice Chancellor at Chandigarh University, and he has completed his Bachelor's in Engineering in Civil Engineering with distinction from University of Mysore, Karnataka in 1983, and MS from IIT Madras in 1988. He did his PhD from IISc Bangalore in 1996, and he has more than 30 years of teaching and research experience. He has presented around 40 technical papers in national and international journals and conferences, and has also presented his technical paper abroad. And Dr. Raghavendra is on the panel of referees for ICE journals. He has delivered lectures at short-term training programs conducted by IISc Bangalore and other premier institutions. And then he has also been member of Board of Studies and Board of Education of various universities. Sir, we extend a very warm welcome to you on behalf of Sharda University. And if you could hear us, I hand it over to you and you can take over, sir.
Thank you, madam, for the kind words. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're very much audible.
So I'm Professor Raghvendra. So I am supposed to speak about the transformation of the assessment for the optimization of learning. I just attended a few minutes back, I entered, and I find that most of the assessment pattern might have been discussed by the earlier presenters. Nevertheless, I think I should discuss with some of the things and then let me see how best I can do. I think let me share my screen now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you can go ahead, sir, please.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you. So the topic of the today's discussion is transforming the culture of assessment for optimizing learning and development. So as I told you, I think we should start from the assessment and other things only. I think the previous speaker also, I believe, he might have touched upon all these aspects. So I think now this is not the time that I should go from the assessment in the part. So see, finally assessment is if our student learn what we taught, we would never need to assess. This is the thing actually. Then assessment is the bridge between the teaching and learning. So the present practice, I think the people might have discussed at a very long, the predominance of the examination system over teaching, memorization, And now we attach a lot of importance to the single stroke examination, that is the examination at the end. And there will be a question mark on the weightage, validity, credibility, and subjectivity in the marking. And of course, when all these things are there, there will be an apprehension, fear, and tension. And of course, finally, the result. So there are certain ways of, I think just now, before that, if all the students get 100 marks, then what is the interpretation of the result? How can I assess each one of them? These are all the problems that we are facing. Now, the features of any assessment, I think I'm sure that the people might have discussed all these things. Anyway, I can put forth my opinion. So any assessment, it may be formative, it may be a regular assessment and competency. Promoting, it should have the idea of promoting learning and development, and should focus on the assessment for learning and the assessment of learning. The test of it should test the higher order skills like analysis, conceptual clarity, and the critical thinking, and continuous revision in teaching learning process to optimize the learning. So as NEP, since we talk about NEP and this particular institution development program is also about NEP, I think PARAK is already there according to the National Education Policy, and Talent Council has given the PARAK also. Then types of assessment, transforming assessments, tools for transforming assessments, implementation strategy. Then comes the nurturing the exceptional talent and the gifted students. Then there will be a talk of 360-degree report card. All these things will apply not only to the higher education, but also to an extent, it is applicable for the school education also. Then the National Education Policy also talk about the NTA, National Testing Authority. So in school education now, I think we are in the threshold of having our new policy. And the main thing is, as applicable to the education, the performance, assessment, review, analysis of knowledge for holistic development. So this is very predominantly stated in the policy. And of course, it is applicable to the higher education also. Then assessment types. So we have diagnostic assessment, formative, entry, and summative assessment. The National Education Policy talks about formative and summative assessment. However, diagnostic assessment is also one of the way of doing it. I think I should take, when I say diagnostic assessment, the relevance of the diagnostic assessment, which is, I think some of the universities are practicing it, to have a electronic portfolio or e-portfolio of students to know their strengths while they getting introduced to a system or a program. We can now take it as a diagnostic assessment. For example, the National Education Policy, while not only offering the options and the flexibility and also the credit bank to the students, making it more student-centric, it also says very clearly that the education system should be in such a manner that it will support the strength of the student, or it will reinforce the learning what they had and make them a better learner. In my opinion, this diagnostic assessment helps the system to assess the strength of the student during his journey, during commencing his journey at the higher education institutions, and then finally we can take a better look into the formative and summative assessment, which is being very well set in the National Education Policy. So there is a need to transform assessment. So the transforming assessment should begin with these qualities. See, I told you in the diagnostic assessment or the e-portfolio, I think we should get an idea about the student and what are his strengths and where he needs the support or the facilitation. Then transforming the assessment would become easier. The continuous tracking of the learning outcome of students. These are all the characteristics of any assessment. Assessment as a tool to improve the teaching learning process. Assessment to focus on core concept, higher order and foundational skills. Of course, the scholastic and post-scholastic orientation. Learning specific tools and techniques for assessment. Predefined rubrics and objectives for each assessment. Self and peer assessment. Ease and excitement of the assessment system. Then finally, a 360-degree report. Coming to the first, continuous tracking of the learning outcome of students. So this will happen. And the improvement in the teaching learning process also. The assessment should be used as a tool to improve the teaching learning process. Then only the transformation will begin to happen. So this, what normally we say is assessment for learning, then the end assessment of learning. So these are the tools that makes the assessment transformation and help us in getting the right alignment during the imparting the certain skill sets. The detailed actionable feedback from the teacher, the peer evaluation, in-class assessments. This assumes a great deal in the assessments. And the flexibility in examination schedule. This is the time that we should think about the flexibility in the examination schedule. The open book or the open note examinations, which I'm sure it is being debated everywhere. Then, of course, the take-home examination, it is just like open book and it's different in certain characteristics. Then conducting many low-stake examinations. This is also NEP is very particular that to avoid the high-stake or the high-end examination. Then weightage for the student participation. So this is also one thing which will definitely help in transforming the assessment. So what is this feedback plus attendance? See, whenever we try to improve the teaching learning process, we should understand what the students are expecting or how the things are going in a group of students. Then definitely we can have some the groups of the students to give the frequent feedbacks by designing certain pattern to get the feedback required. Of course, one feedback forum will not fit into all the courses and all types of student also. This is here that we have to design the learning for assessment for learning system, and we can have a feedback for the, I can say, a graded feedback system, which will definitely attract and the students are inclined to give the right feedback when they are being put into the system of learning. Then, of course, now the other point is our assessment, present assessment, will never talk about the community-based learning. I think this is the one activity which is being told for the holistic development, and we should attach the same importance in outside the classroom activity also. finally, the attainment of students is required. Flexible forms of assessment. I think this community-based learning also would come into that. Then we have to assess the team-based learning, then different grades for absent students. See, now, just because a student has been absent for 1 or 2 assessments or for the final examination, that should not deter him from getting a grade once there is an accountability and checks and balances. So these are all the tools that will transform the system. Even the student should be placed in such a manner that whatever the attainment he has got, whatever the outcome, that should be measured using these techniques. Then of course, now also it is there in some other forum, feedback of the student in teaching and learning examples. Then what is now these are all things that which we talked about. What is the implementation strategy? What is that? What we have to do? What is the process of assessment? What is the content? And then what is the post-assessment? These are all things that one has to implement so that the success of the assessment and also the attainment of the student is measured properly. So the first one is the assessment process. And we all know that one size will never fit all. Even though they might be studying the different courses, different programs, or the same courses, same programs, still the assessment process should be so robust that one size may not fit to all students, all programs, and all courses. So this is the first thing. Then, of course, if I systematize all these things, it will be looking like this, the cycle, the course objectives and outcomes. It should be very clear. The clarity should be there for the teacher. And then once that clarity is there, course objectives and outcomes, of course, nowadays we do a lot of rankings, testings and other things. Even there we have the course objectives and outcomes. And the clarity should be there. What is that? What the students are going to get? What is the type of skill sets they are going to get? So the course objective, what is the educational objectives? What is the outcome? What is the attainment? Then comes, once we are very clear about all these things, then comes the assessment and elements and rubrics. Of course, we do follow the elements and rubrics, but since now there is a flexibility and there is a student-centric, and the objective is to measure the final attainment or the learning or the skill set the students have been attained, the assessment elements and rubrics can have a different meaning and it has to be dealt differently. Even here, the rubrics may not fit. One cannot fit for all. Then we have tentative schedule of assessment. Normally, we have a schedule of assessment. And now we can have the tentative schedule fitting into the learning phase, or depending upon the group of students, we can have this schedule also. Then the instructional activities and learning experience. So here, there will be a formative assessment patterns will come into picture, and we can have a clear-cut, predefined the activities, and then the learning experience will improve over a period of time when there is a graded feedback from the students, and the activities not only inside the classroom but also the outside the classroom will be encouraged. Then comes the result and the final inputs of the students regarding the course. Then the attainments. These are the life cycle of any good assessment. Then the assessment content. It starts with, should demonstration of learning be exciting? Yes, this is the one mantra for the assessment content. It should make students to actively and proactively participate in the content and the assessment. So you have to prepare the content in such a manner that the student should get excited rather than expressing apprehension about the content. So these are some of the things that which will make this the assessment exciting. The first one is the quality of the questions, capacity building of the faculty. This is very important. Of course, I think this is being, when I entered into this particular thing, I think this is being debated also. The capacity building of the faculty, the institutional and third-party quality audits should be always there. The competency-based items to test higher order skills. So normally, finally, we should have the competency-based items to test what he has learned during his journey. Then comes, okay, now the content, this should be like this. Then what are the formative assessment? There are so many things now, I think debate already is on here, the in-class assessment and quizzes and any other activity. I just wanted to go through this. These assessment, formative assessment, or I can call it as in-class or the class activities, when the teaching learning goes on, what are the things that is available? And now we have these quizzes and some assessments and assignments given to that. Now I just wanted to present that what are the exciting opportunities available for teachers to make this assessment more pragmatic, more student-oriented, and also it is not only student-oriented, but it will give you a picture of what we are teaching and how to proceed further. So there are so many things in class assessment techniques. I'm just one by one, I'm just giving you the 3-2-1 technique. Students write about 3 things they learned in lecture, 2 things they found particularly interesting from lecture, and 1 question about the lecture content. So this normally, this will be done at the lower classes, but I think it is very relevant for any student group, what they have learned and what they are doing. Then the active reading documents are also there, incomplete documents that the student complete there for the lecture in order to finish the student locate and comprehend new data. See, this particular this thing is followed in many times. We have followed in the programming and also the other design classes. So give them a design and ask them to complete the or even the program. Then prepare the students in such a way that the groups which are having common themes or the ideas, they will come together and then they will try to float and generate the ideas. This also will help the teacher not only they understand the students, but also make the student what teacher is thinking and what is that they are going to get. Then comes the application article. This is also one of these. So this, after some teaching in the class, students may ask to write certain things about the real world situation on the topic they are discussing, and then this can definitely improve their learning, at least the thinking about what they are learning. Then comes each member assumes a different role with responsibilities to perform while listening to a lecture. It's called as Analytic Teams. Then briefing the paper. Student research current problem of their choice, summarize the main issues and present solutions to a specific audience. This is very relevant, not only the project or the students, but it is very relevant in most of the courses of the learning. Then comes the chain notes, a strategy that begins with the question printed on the top of the paper. The paper is circulated from student to student. Each student responds with 1 or 2 sentences related to the question and pass it on to the next student. So this chain of responses, a student add a new thought or builds on a prior statement. These all gives them a new dimension. Then, of course, the student can have a recent event or the development in the real world that are related to their coursework, then analyze the current affairs to identify the connection to the course material, and it is called as the contemporary issues journal. They can have a journal which will have all these particular things, so that it will definitely improve the thinking of the student and also the affinity towards the content what he is studying. Then comes, of course, this is very frequently used in schools, but I think in the present scenario, it is very well, it can match with the higher education system also. So the students can use any of the tools like video, audio, graphics, web publishing, academic stories, that life experience relevant to those things. Then questionnaire that student will fill out at the beginning of a course or start of a new unit and help the teachers to identify the best starting point for the class. So these are all a higher order of the student, but of course, it will make them to think and identify. Then student work in groups to prepare for a test. Then they take a test, and finally they can take individually and in even the group test. So we can design such test-taking teams to understand the students, and then individually each group can have the test taken in a manner that in what phase they can learn the things. Then comes what, so what, now what, journals. So in what, so what, now what journal means student can reflect on their recent course related activities and respond to each prompt in a general end. So there may be an inventory quiz also for a recent test of questions and the learning modules. They create an answer sheet, or they can have a model answer also. The personal learning environment, set of people and digital resources, an individual can assess for a specific intent of learning something. Student illustrate the potential of connections. There are so many other ways of making these class assessment techniques an interesting one. Role plays, I think everybody is using this role play nowadays. Earlier, the corporates and the management schools used to have this kind of thing while teaching. Now, I think each phase of the education and each course of the program, most of them are using this role play. Then student-generated test questions. So divide the class into groups and assign each group a topic on which they are to create a question they would expect beyond the examination and the answer also. So it will definitely make the students to think about the generated topic, and also to think about the questions and also what is the solution. This is very relevant when we are going to apply the problem to the real world. Then comes the assessment pattern. So yes, we were thinking about the summative assessments, end of the term examination. And of course, summative assessment of the cumulative work, the final project or the creating a portfolio, and the end of the unit as chapter test, standardized test that demonstrate the accountability of the institute. So these are the required for the celebration and to really assess what is, how the things are going, and then what is the achievement. This is actually, it is a measure of the achievement, and not only in terms of the percentage of marks or the grade, but in terms of, since the summative assessment will give an idea for the teacher, not only about the student, but also himself about the attainment and how the things are going. Then there is a post-assessment. So the question is right time to plan for the next run. So what is that? How to plan the next run? This is the post-assessment. A detailed actionable feedback to students for improvement. It is for the students. And when he comes next time or he goes anywhere, he should have a feedback from the teacher that what is required for him to get improved. Then student feedback on the course content, the delivery, assessment activities, and question paper. Even now, we have to an extent, it is there. But what is suggested here is not only the student feedback on the course content, the delivery, assessment activities, and question paper, the manner in which the measurement or the assessment has been taken place, that also you can get the feedback. Then the monitoring of the learners. So this particular thing is 360-degree report, and also the portfolio can be augmented, and the student portfolio, if you create, it will definitely show that how they are progressing and what is the next interventions they require. A group of students, in a class, you may require a different type of interventions for the same subject, the same program. This is also necessary. And now, since the National Education Policy says about the student holistic development and also about the student-centric option flexibility, we have to have this monitoring. And the result is for the improving teaching and learning process. Evidently, when we analyze the results and the dimensions which are responsible for the result, will definitely give us an idea how to improve the teaching and learning process. Then, of course, we call it as in the normal system, the advanced learners and slow learners. And always, even in the National Education Policy now, see, there is a debate always whether to facilitate these gifted learners or how to facilitate. Now there is an option in the new education policy that we can pursue first identify them, and of course the diagnostic assessments and also your formative assessment will do a little bit one step forward. It will take you to identify them. Then see, every student may not have a gifted learning capacity in each of the courses or the whole of the program. I don't say like that. But however, I am sure that the students will have their own strengths. When we support those strengths, definitely it will complement their learning and they can become a better learner. Now, coming to the exceptional talents. Yes, in this new education policy, there is an option to design the assessment and also the teaching learning process beyond the way of teaching, so that they can definitely have a different set of parameters, identified parameters, and then get into that process in a more systematic manner. Earlier also, we used to do a lot things, and we used to give the beyond curriculum, and we used to generate a lot of activities for them. Now, everything is systematically, we can take care, and the policy promotes this kind of the talent. So we can have, for that matter, we can have a project-based clubs to be encouraged and supported, motivate the complete prestigious events and examination, and They can all take now the programs for specialization in education, then university level guidelines for education of gifted children, extensively use of technology to encourage talented and gifted children, efforts for intervention in all areas. These are all some of the things that we can support for the gifted. See, the whole point is here how to tap the potential of the students and make their experience more excited and get them towards attaining the goal. This is then of course there is a 3-degree report card which will say self-assessment, peer assessment, and assessment by teachers. Then there is a national testing agency to reduce the burden on the student. Now there is a debate to have common aptitude test, not to have institution-wise or the university-wise. Thank you. This is what I just wanted to share with you, and I am very happy that I've been given an opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful and insightful session on transforming and imbibing a great culture of assessment for optimizing learning. So if you permit, I'll just take 1 or 2 questions from the
Yeah,
audience. Yeah.
Definitely,
So,
madam.
yeah, so Professor Ankita Goyal, she's asking, since for last 1.5 years, we have been working in the virtual mode, and you have talked about assessment content in your presentation. So she's particularly pointing out, and she wants to know what should be the effective assessment method in the online mode.
Madam, I think this is the general perception that, and the debate is also going on. See, I don't think that online mode will have a different type of assessment than offline mode. Only thing is the tools are different. The objective is same, and now we have to achieve that objective. See, this online we have to take it as an opportunity, and certain things, say for example, in certain aspects, online suits well in certain programs where the physical learning or the practical aspect are, for example, in some of the branches where we have to have, of course, then when there is a practical content is more, or the student will learn by actual activities, then either we have to have a virtual sessions of the laboratory, which is very difficult to have, it's very difficult, or we can go for the mode where the students can, wherever they are trying to get an opportunity, and we can go for that. This online, I still believe that online mode is a tool, but it may not actually completely give the picture for all the programs. But yes, for some of the programs, yes, it has done its job. Most of the programs we do have to, when there is a physical laboratories, and then only, for example, physiotherapy, or when the hands-on experiences certifications are required, where I think that is the another one is now about the aspect skill sets which we are going to impart. Skill set will not close down only on the digital training or the digital, what I can say, the online training, or it will not be limited to the programming or the hackathons. Of course, for some, it is one of the training, but I do believe that whenever we say the activities outside the classroom, it may be practical, maybe it's very difficult to conduct online. But however, to an extent, we had to depend on the virtual platforms. Slowly, see, the pandemic has come at a time. So slowly, we had to develop, and we had to make it. So whenever it comes to this hands-on, yes, there is a limitation. But this limitation, even in the physical mode, there were limitations were there. And we have to, I think, a time has come. Now, I'm not talking about your question. A time has come that when we say that we are going to impart certain skill sets to the student through certifications, through other things, we should have 100%. This is how the skill set should be 100%. It is not about having passing marks of 40% or 60%. Skill set should be complete. Then only we can say that, yes, he has attained the skills.
Yes, sir, I completely agree. I think as assessors or evaluators, we need to innovate. Time has come. Being coming from management, I partially agree with Professor Ankita also. So when we talk about skills like, say, imbibing leadership or confidence or say teamwork or maybe to some extent communication skills also. So as you know, people who have shifted to the virtual mode recently, I think we as faculty are facing certain challenges in management field also, but gradually probably as we learn the tricks of the trade, we would become more apt at it. So thank you so much, sir, for a very informative session. And now I would request Professor Arora again, sir, if you could do the honors of proposing a vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Parul. At the outset, I have a lot of appreciation for Professor Raghvail for his deep understanding, comprehensive view of the assessment and evaluation, and what is the role of faculty in this particular, say, dimension. Because the role of teacher is not only to impart the instruction, but also to see that whether those instructions have been effectively taken by the students and what are the outcomes coming from those instructions. Professor Raghvail has very comprehensively touched upon almost all the dimensions of the assessment, starting with the types, whether the diagnostic, formative, internal, or summative. Then very comprehensively he touched upon the process, including the strategies, and these strategies he took starting with the in-class assessment till the fine end term or summative one. Very lucidly he explained each and every aspect. He took examples also wherever necessary to explain these things. Post-assessment aspect also very comprehensively but been touched by him, and his wonderful talk ended with how to nurture the exceptional talent, which is the very challenging task for the teacher. Because if teacher is concerned only with the slow learners, he will be doing injustice to fast learners or those who are exceptionally talented. Various components of that, how to nurture those exceptional talent, Professor Raghvail has touched upon, and towards end, he gave these 360-degree report card dimensions and what is being done by the national testing agencies. We really appreciate, Professor Raghvail, your presentation and the input that you have given for us. For all faculty members, these are the things which they have to imbibe in them to become the teacher who are doing real justice in implementation of NEP. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Raghvail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. Rao, sir, if you would like to add few words before we finally wind up. Sir, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, fine. So with this, we come to an end of the session. And as I have mentioned earlier also, all's well that ends well. We started with a small technical glitch, but we are able to finish on time. I should say before time. So thank you so much for your patience, for your participation. And on a note